'Tis a poor ignorant lad, and mayhap was driven hard by hunger, for these be grievous times for the unfortunate. Mark you, he hath not an evil face, but when hunger driveth, good woman, dost know that when one steals a thing above the value of 13 halfpenny, the law saith he shall hang for it. The little king started, wide-eyed with consternation, but controlled himself and held his peace, but not so the woman. She sprang to her feet, shaking with fright, and cried out, "O good lack, what have I done? God a mercy, I would not hang the poor thing for the whole world. Ah, save me from this, your worship. What shall I do? What can I do?" The justice maintained his judicial composure and simply said, "Doubtless it is allowable to revise the value, since it is not yet writ upon the record. Then in God's name call the pig 8 pence, and heaven bless the day that freed my conscience of this awesome thing." Miles Hendon forgot all decorum in his delight, and surprised the king and wounded his dignity by throwing his arms around him and hugging him. The woman made her grateful adieus and started away with her pig, and when the constable opened the door for her, he followed her out into the narrow hall. The justice proceeded to write in his record book. Hendon, always alert, thought he would like to know why the officer followed the woman out, so he slipped softly into the dusky hall and listened. He heard a conversation to this effect: "It is a fat pig, and promises good eating. I will buy it of thee. Here is the 8 pence. 8 pence indeed, thou'lt do no such thing. It cost me 3 shillings and 8 pence, good honest coin of the last reign, that old Harry that's just dead ne'er touched or tampered with. A fig for thy 8 pence. Stands the wind in that quarter? Thou wast under oath, and so swore falsely when thou saidst the value was but 8 pence. Come straightway back with me before his worship, and answer for the crime, and then the lad will hang." There, dear heart, say no more, I am content. Give me the 8 pence, and hold thy peace about the matter." The woman went off crying. Hendon slipped back into the courtroom, and the constable presently followed, after hiding his prize in some convenient place. The justice wrote a while longer, then read the king a wise and kindly lecture, and sentenced him to a short imprisonment in the common jail, to be followed by a public flogging. The astounded king opened his mouth, and was probably going to order the good judge to be beheaded on the spot, but he caught a warning sign from Hendon, and succeeded in closing his mouth again before he lost anything out of it. Hendon took him by the hand now, made reverence to the justice, and the two departed in the wake of the constable toward the jail. The moment the street was reached, the inflamed monarch halted, snatched away his hand, and exclaimed, "Idiot, dost imagine I will enter a common jail alive?" Hendon bent down and said, somewhat sharply, "Will you trust in me? Peace, and forbear to worsen our chances with dangerous speech. What God wills will happen. Thou canst not hurry it, thou canst not alter it. Therefore wait, and be patient. 'Twill be time eno to rail or rejoice when what is to happen has happened." Chapter 24. The Escape. The short winter day was nearly ended. The streets were deserted, save for a few random stragglers, and these hurried straight along, with the intent look of people who were only anxious to accomplish their errands as quickly as possible, and then snugly house themselves from the rising wind and the gathering twilight. They looked neither to the right nor to the left. They paid no attention to our party. They did not even seem to see them. Edward VI wondered if the spectacle of a king on his way to jail had ever encountered such marvelous indifference before. By and by the constable arrived at a deserted market square and proceeded to cross it. When he had reached the middle of it, Hendon laid his hand upon his arm and said in a low voice, "Bide a moment, good sir, there is none in hearing, and I would say a word to thee." "My duty forbids it, sir. Prithee hinder me not, the night comes on." "Stay, nevertheless, for the matter concerns thee nearly. Turn thy back a moment, and seem not to see. Let this poor lad escape." "This to me, sir, I arrest thee in." "Nay, be not too hasty. See thou be careful, and commit no foolish error." Then he shut his voice down to a whisper, and said in the man's ear, "The pig thou hast purchased for 8 pence may cost thee thy neck, man." The poor constable, taken by surprise, was speechless at first, then found his tongue and fell to blustering and threatening, But Hendon was tranquil and waited with patience till his breath was spent, then said, I have a liking to thee, friend, and would not willingly see thee come to harm. Observe, I heard it all, every word. I will prove it to thee. Then he repeated the conversation which the officer and the woman had had together in the hall, word for word, and ended with, There have I set it forth correctly. Should not I be able to set it forth correctly before the judge, if occasion required? The man was dumb with fear and distress for a moment. Then he rallied and said with forced lightness, "'Tis making a mighty matter, indeed, out of a jest. I but plagued the woman for mine amusement." "Kept you the woman's pig for amusement?" The man answered sharply, "Naught else, good sir, I tell thee 'twas but a jest." "I do begin to believe thee," said Hendon, with a perplexing mixture of mockery and half-conviction in his tone, "but tarry thou here a moment, whilst I run and ask his worship, for nathless, he being a man experienced in law, in jests, in—" He was moving away, still talking. The constable hesitated, fidgeted, spat out an oath or two, then cried out, "Hold, hold, good sir, prithee wait a little, the judge. Why, man, he hath no more sympathy with a jest than hath a dead corpse. Come, and we will speak further. Odds body, I seem to be in evil case, and all for an innocent and thoughtless pleasantry. I am a man of family, and my wife and little ones. List to reason, good your worship. What wouldst thou of me? Only that thou be blind and dumb and paralytic, whilst one may count 100,000, counting slowly," said Hendon, with the expression of a man who asks but a reasonable favor, and that a very little one. "It is my destruction," said the constable despairingly. "Ah, be reasonable, good sir. Only look at this matter on all its sides, and see how mere a jest it is, how manifestly and how plainly it is so. And even if one granted it were not a jest, it is a fault so small that e'en the grimmest penalty it could call forth would be but a rebuke and warning from the judge's lips." Hendon replied, with a solemnity which chilled the air about him, "This jest of thine hath a name in law. Wot you what it is?" "I knew it not. Peradventure I have been unwise. I never dreamed it had a name. Ah, sweet heaven, I thought it was original." "Yes, it hath a name. In the law this crime is called non compos mentis, lex talionis sic transit gloria mundi." "Ah, my God! And the penalty is death. God be merciful to me, a sinner. By advantage taken of one in fault, in dire peril, and at thy mercy thou hast seized goods worth above 13 halfpenny, paying but a trifle for the same. And this, in the eye of the law, is constructive barratry, misprision of treason, malfeasance in office, ad hominem expurgatis in statu quo, and the penalty is death by the halter, without ransom, commutation, or benefit of clergy. Bear me up, sweet sir, my legs do fail me. Be thou merciful, spare me this doom, and I will turn my back and see naught that shall happen. Good, now thou'rt wise and reasonable, and thou'lt restore the pig." I will indeed, nor ever touch another, though heaven send it and an archangel fetch it. Go, I am blind for thy sake, I see nothing. I will say thou didst break in and wrest the prisoner from my hands by force. It is but a crazy, ancient door. I will batter it down myself betwixt midnight and the morning. Do it, good soul, no harm will come of it. The judge hath a loving charity for this poor lad, and will shed no tears and break no jailer's bones for his escape. Chapter 25. Hendon Hole. As soon as Hendon and the king were out of sight of the constable, his majesty was instructed to hurry to a certain place outside the town, and wait there, whilst Hendon should go to the inn and settle his account. Half an hour later, the two friends were blithely jogging eastward on Hendon's sorry steeds. The king was warm and comfortable now, for he had cast his rags and clothed himself in the second-hand suit which Hendon had bought on London Bridge. Hendon wished to guard against overfatiguing the boy. He judged that hard journeys, irregular meals, and illiberal measures of sleep would be bad for his crazed mind, whilst rest, regularity, and moderate exercise would be pretty sure to hasten its cure. He longed to see the stricken intellect made well again, and its diseased visions driven out of the tormented little head. Therefore he resolved to move by easy stages toward the home whence he had so long been banished, instead of obeying the impulse of his impatience and hurrying along night and day. When he and the king had journeyed about 10 miles, they reached a considerable village and halted there for the night at a good inn. The former relations were resumed. Hendon stood behind the king's chair while he dined and waited upon him, undressed him when he was ready for bed, then took the floor for his own quarters and slept athwart the door, rolled up in a blanket. The next day and the day after, they jogged lazily along, talking over the adventures they had met since their separation, and mightily enjoying each other's narratives. Hendon detailed all his wide wanderings in search of the king, and described how the archangel had led him a fool's journey all over the forest, and taken him back to the hut, finally, when he found he could not get rid of him. Then, he said, the old man went into the bedchamber and came staggering back looking broken-hearted, and saying he had expected to find that the boy had returned and laid down in there to rest. But it was not so. Hendon had waited at the hut all day. Hope of the king's return died out then, and he departed upon the quest again. And old Sanctum Sanctorum was truly sorry your highness came not back, said Hendon. I saw it in his face. Marry, I will never doubt that, said the king, and then told his own story, after which Hendon was sorry he had not destroyed the archangel. During the last day of the trip, Hendon's spirits were soaring. His tongue ran constantly. He talked about his old father and his brother Arthur, and told of many things which illustrated their high and generous characters. He went into loving frenzies over his Edith, and was so glad-hearted that he was even able to say some gentle and brotherly things about Hugh. He dwelt a deal on the coming meeting at Hendon Hall, what a surprise it would be to everybody, and what an outburst of thanksgiving and delight there would be. It was a fair region, dotted with cottages and orchards, and the road led through broad pasture lands whose receding expanses, marked with gentle elevations and depressions, suggested the swelling and subsiding undulations of the sea. In the afternoon, the returning prodigal made constant deflections from his course to see if by ascending some hillock he might not pierce the distance and catch a glimpse of his home. At last he was successful, and cried out excitedly, "There is the village, my prince, and there is the hall close by. You may see the towers from here, and that wood there, that is my father's park. Ah, now thou'lt know what state and grandeur be, a house with 70 rooms, think of that, and 27 servants. A brave lodging for such as we, is it not so? Come, let us speed, my impatience will not brook further delay." All possible hurry was made. Still, it was after 3 o'clock before the village was reached. The travelers scampered through it, Hendon's tongue going all the time. Here is the church, covered with the same ivy, none gone, none added. Yonder is the inn, the old Red Lion, and yonder is the marketplace. Here is the maypole, and here the pump. Nothing is altered, nothing but the people, at any rate. 10 years make a change in people. Some of these I seem to know, but none know me. So his chat ran on. The end of the village was soon reached. Then the travelers struck into a crooked, narrow road, walled in with tall hedges, and hurried briskly along it for half a mile, then passed into a vast flower garden through an imposing gateway, whose huge stone pillars bore sculptured armorial devices. A noble mansion was before them. "Welcome to Hendon Hall, my king," exclaimed Miles. "Ah, 'tis a great day. My father and my brother and the Lady Edith will be so mad with joy that they will have eyes and tongue for none but me in the first transports of the meeting. And so thou'lt seem but coldly welcomed. But mind it not. 'Twill soon seem otherwise. For when I say thou art my ward, and tell them how costly is my love for thee, thou'lt see them take thee to their breasts for Miles Hendon's sake, and make their house and hearts thy home for ever after." The next moment Hendon sprang to the ground before the great door, helped the king down, then took him by the hand and rushed within. A few steps brought him to a spacious apartment. He entered, seated the king with more hurry than ceremony, then ran toward a young man who sat at a writing table in front of a generous fire of logs. "Embrace me, Hugh," he cried, "and say thou'rt glad I am come again, and call our father, for home is not home till I shall touch his hand and see his face and hear his voice once more." But Hugh only drew back, after betraying a momentary surprise, and bent a grave stare upon the intruder. a stare which indicated somewhat of offended dignity, at first, then changed, in response to some inward thought or purpose, to an expression of marveling curiosity, mixed with a real or assumed compassion. Presently he said, in a mild voice, "Thy wit seemed touched, poor stranger. Doubtless thou hast suffered privations and rude buffetings at the world's hands. Thy looks and dress betoken it. Whom dost thou take me to be?" "Take thee, prithee, for whom else than whom thou art? I take thee to be Hugh Hendon," said Miles sharply. The other continued, in the same soft tone, "And whom dost thou imagine thyself to be?" "Imagination hath naught to do with it. Dost thou pretend thou knowest me not for thy brother Miles Hendon?" An expression of pleased surprise flitted across Hugh's face, and he exclaimed, "What, thou art not jesting? Can the dead come to life? God be praised if it be so, our poor lost boy restored to our arms after all these cruel years. Ah, it seems too good to be true, it is too good to be true. I charge thee, have pity, do not trifle with me. Quick, come to the light, let me scan thee well." He seized Miles by the arm, dragged him to the window, and began to devour him from head to foot with his eyes, turning him this way and that, and stepping briskly around him and about him to prove him from all points of view, whilst the returned prodigal, all aglow with gladness, smiled, laughed, and kept nodding his head and saying, "Go on, brother, go on, and fear not. Thou'lt find nor limb nor feature that cannot bide the test. Scour and scan me to thy content, my good old Hugh. I am indeed thy old Miles, thy same old Miles, thy lost brother, is't not so? Ah, 'tis a great day, I said 'twas a great day. Give me thy hand, give me thy cheek, Lord, I am like today of very joy." He was about to throw himself upon his brother, but Hugh put up his hand in dissent, then dropped his chin mournfully upon his breast, saying with emotion, "Ah, God of his mercy, give me strength to bear this grievous disappointment." Miles, amazed, could not speak for a moment. Then he found his tongue and cried out, "What disappointment? Am I not thy brother?" Hugh shook his head sadly and said, "I pray heaven it may prove so, and that other eyes may find the resemblances that are hid from mine. Alack, I fear me the letter spoke but too truly." "What letter?" "One that came from oversea some 6 or 7 years ago. It said my brother died in battle." "It was a lie. Call thy father, he will know me." "One may not call the dead." "Dead?" Miles's voice was subdued and his lips trembled. "My father dead? Oh, this is heavy news. Half my new joy is withered now. Prithee let me see my brother Arthur. He will know me and console me." "He also is dead." "God be merciful to me, a stricken man. Gone, both gone, the worthy taken and the worthless spared in me. Ah, I crave your mercy. Do not say the Lady Edith is dead. No, she lives." "Then God be praised, my joy is whole again. Speed thee, brother, let her come to me. And she say I am not myself, but she will not. No, no, she will know me. I were a fool to doubt it. Bring her, bring the old servants, they too will know me." "All are gone but 5, Peter, Halsey, David, Bernard, and Margaret." So saying, Hugh left the room. Miles stood musing a while, then began to walk the floor, muttering, "The 5 arch-villains have survived the 22 leal and honest. 'Tis an odd thing." He continued walking back and forth, muttering to himself. He had forgotten the king entirely. By and by his majesty said gravely, and with a touch of genuine compassion, though the words themselves were capable of being interpreted ironically, "Mind not thy mischance, good man. There be others in the world whose identity is denied, and whose claims are derided. Thou hast company." "Ah, my king," cried Hendon, colouring slightly, "do not thou condemn me. Wait, and thou shalt see. I am no impostor. She will say it. You shall hear it from the sweetest lips in England. I an impostor? I know this old hall, these pictures of my ancestors, and all these things that are about us, as a child knoweth its own nursery. Here was I born and bred, my lord. I speak the truth. I would not deceive thee, and should none else believe, I pray thee do not thou doubt me. I could not bear it." "I do not doubt thee," said the king, with a childlike simplicity and faith. "I thank thee out of my heart. exclaimed Hendon with a fervency which showed that he was touched. The king added, with the same gentle simplicity, "Dost thou doubt me?" A guilty confusion seized upon Hendon, and he was grateful that the door opened to admit Hugh at that moment and saved him the necessity of replying. A beautiful lady, richly clothed, followed Hugh, and after her came several liveried servants. The lady walked slowly, with her head bowed and her eyes fixed upon the floor. The face was unspeakably sad. Miles Hendon sprang forward, crying out, "Oh, my Edith, my darling!" But Hugh waved him back gravely and said to the lady, "Look upon him, do you know him?" At the sound of Miles's voice, the woman had started slightly and her cheeks had flushed. She was trembling now. She stood still during an impressive pause of several moments, then slowly lifted up her head and looked into Hendon's eyes with a stony and frightened gaze. The blood sank out of her face, drop by drop, till nothing remained but the grey pallor of death. Then she said in a voice as dead as the face, "I know him not," and turned with a moan and a stifled sob and tottered out of the room. Miles Hendon sank into a chair and covered his face with his hands. After a pause, his brother said to the servants, "You have observed him, do you know him?" They shook their heads. Then the master said, "The servants know you not, sir. I fear there is some mistake. You have seen that my wife knew you not." "Thy wife?" In an instant Hugh was pinned to the wall, with an iron grip about his throat. "O thou fox-hearted slave, I see it all. Thou'st writ the lying letter thyself, and my stolen bride and goods are its fruit. There, now get thee gone, lest I shame mine honourable soldiership with the slaying of so pitiful a mannikin." Hugh, red-faced and almost suffocated, reeled to the nearest chair and commanded the servants to seize and bind the murderous stranger. They hesitated, and one of them said, "He is armed, Sir Hugh, and we are weaponless." "Armed, what of it, and ye so many? Upon him, I say." But Miles warned them to be careful what they did, and added, "Ye know me of old, I have not changed. Come on, and it like you." This reminder did not hearten the servants much. They still held back. "Then go, ye paltry cowards, and arm yourselves and guard the doors, whilst I send one to fetch the watch," said Hugh. He turned at the threshold and said to Miles, "You'll find it to your advantage to offend not with useless endeavours at escape. Escape, spare thyself discomfort, and that is all that troubles thee. For Miles Hendon is master of Hendon Hall and all its belongings. He will remain, doubt it not." Chapter 26. Disowned. The king sat musing a few moments, then looked up and said, "'Tis strange, most strange, I cannot account for it." "No, it is not strange, my liege. I know him, and this conduct is but natural. He was a rascal from his birth." "Oh, I spake not of him, Sir Miles." "Not of him, then of what? What is it that is strange?" "That the king is not missed." "How which? I doubt I do not understand." "Indeed, doth it not strike you as being passing strange that the land is not filled with couriers and proclamations describing my person and making search for me? Is it no matter for commotion and distress that the head of the state is gone, that I am vanished away and lost?" "Most true, my king, I had forgot." Then Hendon sighed and muttered to himself, poor ruined mind, still busy with its pathetic dream. "But I have a plan that shall right us both. I will write a paper in 3 tongues, Latin, Greek, and English, and thou shalt haste away with it to London in the morning. Give it to none but my uncle, the Lord Hertford. When he shall see it, he will know and say I wrote it. Then he will send for me. Might it not be best, my prince, that we wait here until I prove myself and make my rights secure to my domains? I should be so much the better able then to—" The king interrupted him imperiously. "Peace, what are thy paltry domains, thy trivial interests, contrasted with matters which concern the weal of a nation and the integrity of a throne?" Then he added in a gentle voice, as if he were sorry for his severity, "Obey and have no fear. I will right thee, I will make thee whole, yes, more than whole. I shall remember and requite." So saying, he took the pen and set himself to work. Hendon contemplated him lovingly a while, then said to himself, "And it were dark, I should think it was a king that spoke. There's no denying it. When the humour's upon on him, he doth thunder and light like your true king. Now where got he that trick? See him scribble and scratch away contentedly at his meaningless pot-hooks, fancying them to be Latin and Greek. And except my wit shall serve me with a lucky device for diverting him from his purpose, I shall be forced to pretend to post away tomorrow on this wild errand he hath invented for me." The next moment Sir Miles's thoughts had gone back to the recent episode. So absorbed was he in his musings that when the king presently handed him the paper which he had been writing, he received it and pocketed it without being conscious of the act. "How marvellous strange she acted," he muttered. "I think she knew me, and I think she did not know me. These opinions do conflict, I perceive it plainly. I cannot reconcile them, neither can I, by argument, dismiss either of the two, or even persuade one to outweigh the other. The matter standeth simply thus. She must have known my face, my figure, my voice, for how could it be otherwise? Yet she said she knew me not, and that is proof perfect, for she cannot lie. But stop, I think I begin to see. Peradventure he hath influenced her, commanded her, compelled her to lie. That is the solution. The riddle is unriddled. She seemed dead with fear. Yes, she was under his compulsion. I will seek her, I will find her. Now that he is away, she will speak her true mind. She will remember the old times when we were little playfellows together, and this will soften her heart, and she will no more betray me, but will confess me. There is no treacherous blood in her. No, she was always honest and true. She has loved me in those old days. This is my security. For whom one has loved, one cannot betray." He stepped eagerly toward the door. At that moment it opened, and the Lady Edith entered. She was very pale, but she walked with a firm step, and her carriage was full of grace and gentle dignity. Her face was as sad as before. Miles sprang forward with a happy confidence to meet her, but she checked him with a hardly perceptible gesture, and he stopped where he was. She seated herself and asked him to do likewise. Thus simply did she take the sense of old comradeship out of him and transform him into a stranger and a guest. The surprise of it, the bewildering unexpectedness of it, made him begin to question, for a moment, if he was the person he was pretending to be after all. The Lady Edith said, "Sir, I have come to warn you. The mad cannot be persuaded out of their delusions, perchance, but doubtless they may be persuaded to avoid perils. I think this dream of yours hath the seeming of honest truth to you, and therefore is not criminal, but do not tarry here with it, for here it is dangerous." She looked steadily into Miles's face a moment, then added, impressively, "It is the more dangerous for that you are much like what our lost lad must have grown to be if he had lived." "Heavens, madam, but I am he." "I truly think you think it, sir. I question not your honesty in that. I but warn you, that is all. My husband is master in this region. His power hath hardly any limit. The people prosper or starve as he wills. If you resembled not the man whom you profess to be, my husband might bid you pleasure yourself with your dream in peace. But trust me, I know him well. I know what he will do. He will say to all that you are but a mad impostor, and straightway all will echo him." She bent upon Miles that same steady look once more, and added, "If you were Miles Hendon, and he knew it and all the region knew it, consider what I am saying, weigh it well. You would stand in the same peril, your punishment would be no less sure. He would deny you and denounce you, and none would be bold enough to give you countenance." "Most truly I believe it," said Miles, bitterly. "The power that can command one lifelong friend to betray and disown another, and be obeyed, may well look to be obeyed in quarters where bread and life are on the stake, and no cobweb ties of loyalty and honor are concerned." A faint tinge appeared for a moment in the lady's cheek, and she dropped her eyes to the floor, but her voice betrayed no emotion when she proceeded. "I have warned you, I must still warn you to go hence. This man will destroy you else. He is a tyrant who knows no pity. I, who am his fettered slave, know this. Poor Miles and Arthur and my dear guardian Sir Richard are free of him and at rest. Better that you were with them than that you bide here in the clutches of this miscreant. Your pretensions are a menace to his title and possessions. You have assaulted him in his own house. You are ruined if you stay. Go, do not hesitate. If you lack money, take this purse, I beg of you, and bribe the servants to let you pass. Oh, be warned, poor soul, and escape while you may." Miles declined the purse with a gesture, and rose up, and stood before her. "Grant me one thing," he said. "Let your eyes rest upon mine, so that I may see if they be steady. There, now answer me, am I Miles Hendon?" "Number, I know you not." "Swear it." The answer was low, but distinct. "I swear." "Oh, this passes belief." "Fly, why will you waste the precious time? Fly, and save yourself." At that moment the officers burst into the room, and a violent struggle began, but Hendon was soon overpowered and dragged away. The king was taken also, and both were bound and led to prison. Chapter 27. In Prison. The cells were all crowded, so the two friends were chained in a large room where persons charged with trifling offences were commonly kept. They had company, for there were some 20 manacled and fettered prisoners here, of both sexes and of varying ages, an obscene and noisy gang. The king chafed bitterly over the stupendous indignity thus put upon his royalty, but Hendon was moody and taciturn. He was pretty thoroughly bewildered. He had come home, a jubilant prodigal, expecting to find everybody wild with joy over his return, and instead had got the cold shoulder and a jail. The promise and the fulfillment differed so widely that the effect was stunning. He could not decide whether it was most tragic or most grotesque. He felt much as a man might who had danced blithely out to enjoy a rainbow and got struck by lightning. But gradually his confused and tormenting thoughts settled down into some sort of order, and then his mind centered itself upon Edith. He turned her conduct over and examined it in all lights, but he could not make anything satisfactory out of it. Did she know him or didn't she know him? It was a perplexing puzzle and occupied him a long time, but he ended, finally, with the conviction that she did know him and had repudiated him for interested reasons. He wanted to load her name with curses now, but this name had so long been sacred to him that he found he could not bring his tongue to profane it. Wrapped in prison blankets of a soiled and tattered condition, Hendon and the king passed a troubled night. For a bribe, the jailer had furnished liquor to some of the prisoners. Singing of ribald songs, fighting, shouting, and carousing was the natural consequence. At last, a while after midnight, a man attacked a woman and nearly killed her by beating her over the head with his manacles before the jailer could come to the rescue. The jailer restored peace by giving the man a sound clubbing about the head and shoulders. Then the carousing ceased, and after that, all had an opportunity to sleep, who did not mind the annoyance of the moanings and groanings of the two wounded people. During the ensuing week, the days and nights were of a monotonous sameness as to events. Men whose faces Hendon remembered more or less distinctly came by day to gaze at the impostor and repudiate and insult him, and by night the carousing and brawling went on with symmetrical regularity. However, there was a change of incident at last. The jailer brought in an old man and said to him, "The villain is in this room. Cast thy old eyes about and see if thou canst say which is he." Hendon glanced up and experienced a pleasant sensation for the first time since he had been in the jail. He said to himself, "This is Blake Andrews, a servant all his life in my father's family, a good honest soul with a right heart in his breast. That is, formerly, but none are true now, all are liars. This man will know me and will deny me too like the rest." The old man gazed around the room, glanced at each face in turn, and finally said, "I see none here but paltry knaves, scum o' the streets. Which is he?" The jailer laughed. "Here," he said, "scan this big animal and grant me an opinion." The old man approached and looked Hendon over long and earnestly, then shook his head and said, "Marry, this is no Hendon, nor ever was. Right, thy old eyes are sound yet. An I were Sir Hugh, I would take the shabby carl and—" The jailer finished by lifting himself a tiptoe with an imaginary halter, at the same time making a gurgling noise in his throat, suggestive of suffocation. The old man said, vindictively, "Let him bless God and he fare no worse. And I had the handling o' the villain he should roast, or I am no true man." The jailer laughed a pleasant hyena laugh, and said, "Give him a piece of thy mind, old man, they all do it. Thou'lt find it good diversion." Then he sauntered toward his anteroom and disappeared. The old man dropped upon his knees and whispered, God be thanked, thou art come again, my master. I believed thou wert dead these 7 years, and lo, here thou art alive. I knew thee the moment I saw thee, and main hard work it was to keep a stony countenance, and seemed to see none here but tuppenny knaves and rubbish o' the streets. I am old and poor, Sir Miles, but say the word and I will go forth and proclaim the truth, though I be strangled for it. No, said Hendon, thou shalt not. It would ruin thee, and yet help but little in my cause. But I thank thee, for thou hast given me back somewhat of my lost faith in my kind. The old servant became very valuable to Hendon and the king, for he dropped in several times a day to abuse the former, and always smuggled in a few delicacies to help out the prison bill of fare. He also furnished the current news. Hendon reserved the dainties for the king. Without them, his majesty might not have survived, for he was not able to eat the coarse and wretched food provided by the jailer. Andrews was obliged to confine himself to brief visits in order to avoid suspicion, but he managed to impart a fair degree of information each time, information delivered in a low voice for Hendon's benefit and interlarded with insulting epithets delivered in a louder voice for the benefit of other hearers. So little by little, the story of the family came out. Arthur had been dead 6 years. This loss, with the absence of news from Hendon, impaired the father's health. He believed he was going to die, and he wished to see Hugh and Edith settled in life before he passed away. But Edith begged hard for delay, hoping for Miles's return. Then the letter came which brought the news of Miles's death. The shock prostrated Sir Richard. He believed his end was very near, and he and Hugh insisted upon the marriage. Edith begged for and obtained a month's respite, then another, and finally a third. The marriage then took place by the deathbed of Sir Richard. It had not proved a happy one. It was whispered about the country that shortly after the nuptials, the bride found among her husband's papers several rough and incomplete drafts of the fatal letter, and had accused him of precipitating the marriage and Sir Richard's death, too, by a wicked forgery. Tales of cruelty to the Lady Edith and the servants were to be heard on all hands, and since the father's death, Sir Hugh had thrown off all soft disguises and become a pitiless master toward all who in any way depended upon him and his domains for bread. There was a bit of Andrew's gossip, which the king listened to with a lively interest. There is rumor that the king is mad, but in charity forbear to say I mentioned it, for 'tis death to speak of it, they say. His Majesty glared at the old man and said, The king is not mad, good man, and thou'lt find it to thy advantage to busy thyself with matters that nearer concern thee than this seditious prattle. What doth the lad mean? Said Andrews, surprised at this brisk assault from such an unexpected quarter. Hendon gave him a sign, and he did not pursue his question, but went on with his budget. The late king is to be buried at Windsor in a day or two, the 16th of the month, and the new king will be crowned at Westminster the 20th. Methinks they must needs find him first, muttered his Majesty, then added confidently, but they will look to that, and so also shall I. In the name of... But the old man got no further. A warning sign from Hendon checked his remark. He resumed the thread of his gossip. Sir Hugh goeth to the coronation, and with grand hopes. He confidently looketh to come back a peer, for he is high in favour with the Lord Protector. What Lord Protector? Asked his Majesty. His Grace the Duke of Somerset. What Duke of Somerset? Marry, there is but one Seymour, Earl of Hertford. The king asked sharply. Since when is he a duke and Lord Protector? Since the last day of January. And prithee, who made him so? Himself and the Great Council, with help of the king. His Majesty started violently. The king, he cried, what king, good sir? What king indeed? God a mercy, what aileth the boy? Sith we have but one, 'tis not difficult to answer. His most sacred Majesty King Edward the Sixth, whom God preserve. Yea, and a dear and gracious little urchin is he too, and whether he be mad or no, and they say he mendeth daily, his praises are on all men's lips, and all bless him likewise, and offer prayers that he may be spared to reign long in England. For he began humanely with saving the old Duke of Norfolk's life, and now is he bent on destroying the cruelest of the laws that harry and oppress the people. This news struck his majesty dumb with amazement, and plunged him into so deep and dismal a reverie that he heard no more of the old man's gossip. He wondered if the little urchin was the beggar boy whom he left dressed in his own garments in the palace. It did not seem possible that this could be, for surely his manners and speech would betray him if he pretended to be the Prince of Wales. Then he would be driven out, and search made for the true prince. Could it be that the court had set up some sprig of the nobility in his place? No, for his uncle would not allow that. He was all-powerful, and could and would crush such a movement, of course. The boy's musings profited him nothing. The more he tried to unriddle the mystery, the more perplexed he became, the more his head ached, and the worse he slept. His impatience to get to London grew hourly, and his captivity became almost unendurable. Hendon's arts all failed with the king. He could not be comforted, but a couple of women who were chained near him succeeded better. Under their gentle ministrations, he found peace and learned a degree of patience. He was very grateful, and came to love them dearly and to delight in the sweet and soothing influence of their presence. He asked them why they were in prison, and when they said they were Baptists, he smiled and inquired, "Is that a crime to be shut up for in a prison? Now I grieve, for I shall lose ye. They will not keep ye long for such a little thing." They did not answer, and something in their faces made him uneasy. He said eagerly, "You do not speak. Be good to me, and tell me there will be no other punishment. Prithee tell me there is no fear of that." They tried to change the topic, but his fears were aroused, and he pursued it. "Will they scourge thee? No, no, they would not be so cruel. Say they would not. Come, they will not, will they?" The women betrayed confusion and distress, but there was no avoiding an answer, so one of them said, in a voice choked with emotion, "O thou'lt break our hearts, thou gentle spirit, God will help us to bear our—" "It is a confession," the king broke in. "Then they will scourge thee, the stony-hearted wretches, but oh, thou must not weep, I cannot bear it. Keep up thy courage. I shall come to my own in time to save thee from this bitter thing, and I will do it." When the king awoke in the morning, the women were gone. "They are saved," he said joyfully, then added despondently, "But woe is me, for they were my comforters." Each of them had left a shred of ribbon pinned to his clothing in token of remembrance. He said he would keep these things always, and that soon he would seek out these dear good friends of his and take them under his protection. Just then the jailer came in with some subordinates and commanded that the prisoners be conducted to the jail yard. The king was overjoyed. It would be a blessed thing to see the blue sky and breathe the fresh air once more. He fretted and chafed at the slowness of the officers, but his turn came at last, and he was released from his staple and ordered to follow the other prisoners with Hendon. The court or quadrangle was stone-paved and open to the sky. The prisoners entered it through a massive archway of masonry and were placed in file, standing, with their backs against the wall. A rope was stretched in front of them, and they were also guarded by their officers. It was a chill and lowering morning, and a light snow which had fallen during the night whitened the great empty space and added to the general dismalness of its aspect. Now and then a wintry wind shivered through the place and sent the snow eddying hither and thither. In the center of the court stood two women chained to posts. A glance showed the king that these were his good friends. He shuddered and said to himself, "Alack, they are not gone free as I had thought. To think that such as these should know the lash in England, aye, there's the shame of it, not in heathenness Christian England. They will be scourged, and I, whom they have comforted and kindly entreated, must look on and see the great wrong done. It is strange, so strange, that I, the very source of power in this broad realm, am helpless to protect them. But let these miscreants look well to themselves, for there is a day coming when I will require of them a heavy reckoning for this work. For every blow they strike now, they shall feel 100 then." A great gate swung open, and a crowd of citizens poured in. They flocked around the two women and hid them from the king's view. A clergyman entered and passed through the crowd, and he also was hidden. The king now heard talking back and forth, as if questions were being asked and answered, but he could not make out what was said. Next, there was a deal of bustle and preparation, and much passing and repassing of officials through that part of the crowd that stood on the further side of the women, and whilst this proceeded, a deep hush gradually fell upon the people. Now, by command, the masses parted and fell aside, and the king saw a spectacle that froze the marrow in his bones. Faggots had been piled about the two women, and a kneeling man was lighting them.